to attempt to record this today again. We have a special guest with us today. This is Sarah Wagner. I know you guys have been waiting since the beginning because I think I referenced you like the very first day. I was like, yay,
awesome.
she's coming. So she's coming to present some resources. Now, I'm not going to quiz you on this, yay, but this is going to be stuff that will be useful to you both for projects and for perhaps your careers. So you may want to take some notes just for your own thoughts on it, either on the computer, on paper, whatever you want to do. And then at the end, we will talk some more about project 2 if we have time. Okay. So with that, I'm going to get out of the way for Sarah.
Thank you. So I'm excited to talk to you guys today. I am Sarah Wagner, so I'm one of the librarians over at Homekey Library. And I'm going to talk to you about some resources. And I want to show you both resources that the library has, but also some things that you can find on the, kind of open on the internet. But before I get started, I was going to ask if anybody is willing to share what they plan to focus on, if you know, for this project. Is anyone willing to share?
I have some ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm interviewing a grant writer.
Oh, awesome. Anybody else want to share?
I'll be hanging out with Sue Miller in the liberal arts college.
Okay. Okay, awesome. Yeah.
I'm interviewing a news journalist.
Oh, that'll be interesting. All right, so anybody else want to share what they're going to focus on? You know who you're interviewing, or you know kind of the general direction? Okay, no obligations to share at all, so we will go with that. One thing that I wanted to show you guys or share with you that is available on the open internet that you may find useful for this project is called the Occupational Outlook Handbook. This is a resource that is made available through the Bureau of Labor Statistics. So this is basically the government agency that tracks different occupations. They make projections about which ones are growing, which ones are not growing. There are some kind of fun ways that you can browse it by these different groups. You can browse by things like highest paying occupation, which I always look at it and like, why wasn't I an anesthesiologist? Like, I could have made so much money. You can also browse by degree and so forth. You can also do, in this tiny little box at the top of the page, you can do a search for a particular occupation as well. And these can take a variety of forms. So I can just type in here, writer, and see what that shows me. So in the search results here, writers and authors are the first results. But one thing to kind of think about as you go down this list, there's also technical writers, media and communication occupations, editors, news analysts, reporters and journalists, paralegals. I believe we have some people who are looking at criminal justice or have majors. Yeah, so that might be one. So there might be some writing connections that you might not have initially thought of. I'm going to look first at the page for writers and authors. And this is just giving you kind of a general overview of like what does this particular occupation entail. Each tab across the top does provide additional information. Oh, oops. It tells you what they do. It also, at various points, gives you some examples of more specific language that you might be able to use to search to find more resources. So when I think about writers, usually I'm like thinking about like a novelist. I don't always think about like copywriters or speechwriters, screenwriters, playwrights. So there's a lot of different forms that like use writing that are just within that kind of writer-author heading. So some things to think about, depending on what direction you particularly want to take with your project. These could all be search terms or things that you could delve into more specifically. So keep that in mind as you're exploring. There's always good information on how to become one. This is where you see stuff about like what kind of education is required. So I believe a lot of you are English majors, right? So it looks like you are well on your way to completing the educational requirements for this particular occupation. But it does detail like some other training that some writers do have. Another thing to kind of keep in mind under important qualities, like they do have, as you might expect, writing skills as well as some other things detailed. I will point out, everybody likes to look at the pay tab because it's, you know, the most interesting. These are based on median wages from, usually they're about a year behind, as you might expect, and they do a comparison across all occupations. One thing I will point out is this is something, as you're working on your projects, I believe you need a visual element. So as you're looking at this resource, as you're looking at other resources, you can kind of see some of the graphics being used, might give you ideas or inspiration for what you particularly want to use for your project. So there's two other things that I want to point out. That is similar occupations. So maybe you're like, this is all cool about being a writer, but like I want something slightly ever so different. They have pages on that are specific to editors, specific to reporters and journalists, technical writers, which is always something that like I never like think about, but like those are the people who like literally will write like all the instruction manuals for things or different kinds of more technical literature. So there's some additional options there that you may not have initially thought of or considered. So that's another thing to look at. And finally, under more info, one thing I also like to make sure people are aware of, this is like a list of professional organizations within this particular occupation. And this can be a good jumping off point to more, you know, sort of trade literature or other opportunities. So for example, I'm going to click here on the National Association of Science Writers. It will give me this page about like, you're leaving, do you really want to do that? But this is basically showing me the website for this particular association. If I wanted to focus on science writing, this might be something that you might want to actually join if this was your passion. And they do have some information. So they've got their about page. One thing I will also point out under news, they have some publications. So you can browse their most recent issues of the publication from this professional association. You can see what kind of issues they're talking about, people who are focused on science writing. So you can kind of browse these stories. It might give you kind of a sense of what somebody working within this particular type of field might be thinking about, issues that they might be experiencing. It might give you kind of a sense of what their work looks like and what kinds of challenges they face. Does anyone have questions about anything I've covered so far? Yeah.
No, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're just stretching. That's totally great. Anybody questions about anything I've talked about so far? Does this all make sense? Has anyone looked at the Occupational Outlook Handbook before? Yeah, excellent. It is a good resource. So I do want to transition now, and I wanted to talk specifically about some library resources and how you might utilize some of those tools to find resources for this particular assignment. And the first thing I wanted to point out was some things that you can access via the library catalog. So when you're on the library website, it defaults to this search everything, which searches across all of the library databases. It can be useful. It can also be a little too much. In this particular case, for what I want to highlight for you guys, I'm going to limit my search just to the catalog. So I'm just looking at both print and electronic books that we have, as well as a couple other things that fall within the catalog search, not everything. So let's do, I was intrigued by technical writing, so I'm just going to do a search on that. And this is showing me some different resources that we have related to that. So we've got an ebook. So anytime you see online access, that denotes that this is an electronic resource. You can access that here on campus. You can also access this at home. Like, you don't have to come into the library building, although I all want you to. But you can, if it's 2 o'clock in the morning before your assignment's due, but you shouldn't procrastinate that long, you can access all these resources.
Nobody does that, no.
No, we don't do that, right? That is the great thing about ebooks. They are accessible via the internet. So we do have some ebooks that, as well as this Journal of Technical Writing and Communication, as well as Technical Communication Quarterly. Those are both electronic journals. And then some of these others are books. This one is actually a physical book. You can see that. So whenever it says available at General Collection floors 3 and 4, that means it's actually a physical book, if that is your preference. So I would encourage you to kind of explore what we might have. So I believe somebody said they were doing grant writing. And I know we've got a couple of things that are specific to grant writing. So that might be useful to kind of identify those and use those to help flesh out some details. So this is basically the catalog search. I would kind of encourage you, it's going to vary depending on what you want to focus on. But we do have a wide range of sources for those different writing in a variety of disciplines. So most of what you will find via that catalog search is going to be books and journals. So that's typically what you'll find that way. If you want to try to find some articles, Academic Search Complete, which you can access right here under Quick Links, is a good database to start with if you want to start searching on more of a article level. So if I do a search on technical writing, this is going to bring up quite a wide range of sources. And I will point out just these different types of sources. In particular for this assignment, you might want to also look at the trade publications. Does everybody have a sense when I say trade publication, like what kind of publication I'm talking about? No. So if we go back a couple steps, do you remember when I showed you this website for the science writers? The publication that they're publishing as part of their organization would be considered a trade publication. So typically with trade publications, we're talking about things that are written by professionals in a field for other professionals in a field. So my dad was an engineer, and he always got like these magazines from his professional association. I always thought the covers had really cool pictures, but all of the stuff in like between the pages was kind of gibberish to me. But so this was kind of one of the ways that he stayed up to date. And this is kind of likewise the same thing. So when you see, when you go back and you're in a database like this, and you see this label of trade publications, that's the type of publication it's denoting. It's typically, they're written by professionals in the field, and the articles are geared at other professionals in the field.
They often aren't scholarly in nature. If you had to do between popular and scholarly trades, kind of that one in the middle with expertise, but not necessarily scholarly.
Yeah, and that's why we have a separate category here for academic journals. Magazines and newspapers are going to be definitely they're written kind of for that popular audience, for everybody, and then trade for that kind of expertise. So you can, if you so choose, limit and just look at those trade publications. So instead of like sorting through all of them, you can narrow down to that particular type of source.
Can you put a couple more general terms in there that they
Yeah.
might be interested in, just so they can see?
Let's try grant writing. And one of the things, I did not spell that right, did I? One of the things that this database will do for you is it will try to kind of do a little bit of the thinking for you and suggest some additional terms that you might want to add to your search. So I started to type in grant writing, and it's like, well, do you want to know about the process? Grant writing for nonprofit organizations, grant writing in healthcare. So for example, if maybe I really kind of wanted to know about the angle of grant writing for nonprofit organizations, that makes sense. A lot of nonprofits would be interested in grants. I can kind of focus on that. The downside of a specific search is, in this particular case, it doesn't give me a lot of results, but it does give me a couple of things. And they might be more useful if that is kind of the narrow focus I want to go with. So you can add almost as many terms as you would like. Can also, let me also do, you can also put your terms within quotation marks to kind of force it to look for those two terms together. So there are different sort of tricks you can do to connect your terms. So I can do grant writing and quotes and healthcare, if maybe wanted to focus on that. So there are different ways that you can kind of structure that search to kind of get slightly different results. So if you do that search and you only have 5 results, it's not the end of the world. You can try some different combinations of things. So you have questions about this? Do you feel pretty confident? Have some of you, I'm guessing, have used some of these resources before? Excellent. Another thing that I will point out are the topic guides. So we have these different topic guides that are specific to a variety of disciplines. There is definitely one for English and linguistics, but I believe we have some criminal justice majors in this class. So you may want to look at some of the more specific resources related to criminal justice. So on each guide, we kind of have highlighted sort of the featured databases. You could definitely do some searches in there. We also have history majors, correct? Some history majors?
Yep.
Yes, awesome. I was a history major long time ago. Likewise, we've got some featured resources there. So you can kind of explore some of those more subject-specific resources to kind of add information. Did you also share that we had like a business major? We do? Awesome, yay! Business has a lot of resources and they are super specific. So I would really encourage you to explore some of those databases. And if you need help exploring any of these resources, please remember that you can reach out. On each page, there is the name of the librarian that's kind of responsible for that particular area, as well as options to contact them. So.
And would a librarian, let's say somebody wanted a meeting, would they sit down with them and help them find resources?
Absolutely, yeah. So some of you might find that like you're not finding things on your own. We absolutely offer one-on-one appointments. So you can, for example, if you're studying business, if you're on this page, you can contact SG, our business librarian, directly from here. That being said, you can also make an appointment with any of the librarians. They don't have to be the specialist in the particular area. So on the homepage, under the Get Help tab, there are a number of options. So the first one is Ask a Librarian, and then the second one is Meet with a Librarian. I'm going to show you the Ask a Librarian page though, because they're kind of connected. So you probably, if you spent any time on the library website, you'll notice that we have like the pop-up box that like, ask us a question if you stay on the page too long. No? Okay. So that is our instant messaging service. So if you're on the library website, you're not finding what you need, please, you can start a chat with a staff member kind of almost any time the library is open. If that doesn't work for you, you can call, text, or email us. If you are emailing us, it may take, particularly if you email us at 2 o'clock in the morning, it may be the next morning before we can get to your question, because we do sleep. You can also locate the librarian who, if you want to make an appointment with the history librarian or the English librarian. You can find them in our staff directory, and then there are the options to schedule an appointment as well. So if you open this up, we offer both in-person and virtual appointments. So you do not have to leave, home to meet with a librarian. You can also meet in person. And if you don't have a preference, you can see all the time slots that are available.
And Sarah, what might be what someone in here might want to schedule with you specifically for?
So I do engineering, polytechnic, computer science, OL, and then I do some stuff with English composition as well. So, but I can help with any of the, I've been at the library a little while and I know most of the resources. So if somebody else isn't available who's a specialist in that area, I'm more than happy to help. These are all your options. Does anyone have questions? I know you're about a week into your assignment, so has anyone like come across roadblocks or something that they haven't been able to find we can help with, or I can help with?
What other topics might anybody in here want to see what kinds of stuff they have? Before she leaves, our expert.
Teaching. So we do have education resources. So the primary database for education is something called ERIC. So are you specifically thinking about writing within like teaching, or yes? Or the teaching of writing? Yeah. English teaching? Okay. Do we just want to search for English teaching? It's giving us some ideas here. So English teaching methods, English teaching primary to middle school. What are you thinking?
Maybe the one below.
Foreign language? Okay. Let's try that one.
And now you're searching only in ERIC, right?
Yeah, so I realized, so a lot of our databases are through EBSCOhost. That's basically like the vendor that provides a bunch of these databases, but the database that I'm specifically looking at is ERIC. It's gonna look and function very similar to the academic search complete that I just showed a few minutes ago.
Remember that when you're going back and forth, like sometimes you might want to search the specific and then maybe there's not enough, then you might go, oh yeah, there's more. So like at the top there, you might have to go back and forth between choosing databases.
So if you're in an EBSCO database, you can do this. So if you select that choose database option, you can see the full list of EBSCO databases that the library has access to. So one thing I will, like the caveat that I will point out is this is not the full list of all the databases the library has. This is the full list of the EBSCO databases that the library has. So we have more beyond this, but if you know that the databases you need to look at are primarily EBSCO databases, you can opt to search multiple ones at the same time. So I could say, actually, I want to search, right now I've been searching ERIC. I could say, I want to add academic search complete to my search. And I might browse this list to see if there's anything else that I know or suspect might be relevant. So in this case, maybe I want to add education full text to my search. If I'm kind of primarily interested in that education focus. And then I can hit OK. I do have to rerun the search. But now at the top, it's telling me I'm searching ERIC, and then there's a comma and it says show all. It would show me the full list of databases that I'm looking at. Yeah, so that's kind of one thing that you can use. It kind of depends on if you know that you definitely need to look at those EBSCO databases. Did that make sense to everybody? Okay.
Sometimes I forget that. Like I'll be searching and I get into this little tiny rabbit hole and I'm like, there's only 2 resources, why? And then I forget I'm only searching this one, not this one.
Yes. And if you are coming up against a topic that for whatever reason you're only getting like 2 resources, you can actually try the everything search at that point too, because that will attempt to search across all of the library databases. So, earlier I wasn't getting a ton of results with my like grant writing and healthcare search. So I put it through the everything search. I still don't have actually a ton of search results, but I've got 115 here, as opposed to, I think I had like 5 or something when I was just looking at academic search complete. So this can work really nicely if you have something where you're just not getting a lot of search results, but it can also be like really overwhelming if you're starting with a really broad search and you haven't focused it.
Why criminal justice people? Do you have any topics specifically you wanted to search for?
Law enforcement, right?
Law enforcement, okay.
The interesting thing about you, especially if you're an English major or a history major, is you'll start to see that your writing skills, your communication skills are applicable to all these kinds of, categories. And you might want to be a writer and you might end up writing for law enforcement. And, you don't know that, right?
Yeah. So there's also like court reporters. So there's quite a range of things that you might find yourself writing. So in this one, it looks like we do have a couple of books, as well as some articles. So I did kind of stick with the everything search on this one, just to kind of see what it gave me. This is an area where my recommendation would be to play around with different search terms. Because, law enforcement is kind of how we might be thinking about this topic. You could do a similar search and think about law and the writing, corrections and writing. So I would play around. Police science is a term that does not come naturally to me. So all of these things are things that you can kind of play around with different search terms to kind of see how that affects your search results.
Where might they be able to find a list of search terms if they're not getting anywhere?
Mm-hmm. So my typical approach is kind of type in what comes naturally to you. So if we start with law enforcement, and maybe I'm going to click on this first one. Maybe it's not precisely what I want, but it might give me some ideas about where to go. So under subjects right here, there's 2 subject terms associated with this particular item, and it's police reports and report writing. So I wasn't thinking about police reports, right, as a search term. So what I can do now, I can actually, from here, I can click on that term, and it will bring up everything that this search can find that has that term associated with it. I could also go back to my original search and swap out, I could say police report and writing and try that search as well. So now it's giving me some slightly different results that I didn't see in my first search.
So
And
you suggest if you're looking for other terms, put something in there and then maybe pick the first source and just look at those.
That's kind of how I often will approach it. And so I'm getting like slightly different results now. And so I could click on these. Maybe they're still not quite what I want, but I could also see, okay, what subject terms are being used? And that's how you can kind of start to compile a list. of things that this one, the only subject term unfortunately is police reports, so maybe that's a dead end. But I can look at some of these other ones as well.
This is also kind of useful if you're searching Google and you're not
Mhm.
finding anything and you're like, what are the search terms? You
Mhm.
can go to the library, search there, and then see what are they categorizing things as, and then go use those search terms in Google.
Yeah, unfortunately, Google doesn't like apply like subject terms to things. Limitation, I guess. But you can kind of play around with some different ones. So, like this one, police study and teaching, police reports, police brutality. Some of these were not terms that I had kind of on my radar. The other thing you can do is this one is a print item, so it's lives in the library. I could go find this on the library shelf and I could see if there's anything right next to it that is also related to what I'm searching.
And there's a reference section there too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reference section also might have something similar.
The reference section does have some, we do have in our reference sections a few specific sources on writing in a variety of different disciplines. So that is one place you could look. There's also the option, if you identify like a print title that you're interested in, you can do the virtual browse, which shows you what should be appearing right next to it on the shelf. So that might give you some ideas for other things. So that's kind of, if you scroll down a little bit, for any particular item. So kind of a variety of ways that you can go about that. It's sort of what kind of works for any individual. Does that make sense? Does anyone else have questions? Was there any topics we didn't cover or I didn't cover?
Anybody else want to see what their angle of stuff is in the library? You got a research specialist here that'll search for you.
Yeah.
Any information on administrative careers?
Yeah. So I'm guessing you're thinking about writing within an administrative career. Okay. I'm going to start with just administration and writing to see what that takes me to. So there are some things like, so this is an older title, but you might want to look at it in terms of technical writing, manual writing and administration. This is one where I think you probably want to define what you're thinking about by administration, because I'm seeing a lot of writing center administration and things like that. So when you're thinking about administration, what are you what are you thinking about?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm just interviewing someone next week. So.
When you think about the person that you're interviewing, and like their job and their task, like what are you thinking about?
I would say for her, what makes her come into work every day and what her job entails in reality, because a lot of research I've done with people before, it's like they follow me around what I do for a day, and a lot of it's like I sent emails and then I did work. It's like, what does that mean? What does that mean? You got paid somehow, clearly, because you live in a beautiful house and you have 5 cats. But
this is the dream,
yeah.
right?
But it's like, what does that mean? I did work. So that means nothing to
Mhm.
me. So.
Okay. What I think, and this might be something when you're interviewing the person, to get her to think about what that administration function means, and listen to the language that she uses, and make notes of that, because there may be terms that she uses that can also be search terms. So like, I don't know, like when we think about, there are a lot of different forms that administration can take. So is it business administration? Like, is she doing administrative tasks within a business? Healthcare administration is also slightly different. So like, think about the terminology and kind of maybe the specific kind of area that administration is occurring within. When I think about administration, like, does that include like any kind of supervisory tasks? Is administration close to management? But like, all of those kind of different terms could be different search terms as well when you're using the library databases. They can also be different search terms if you're trying to locate things via Google or another source like that. Administration is like a really broad terminology and can denote so many different things that you might just have to try a couple different ways to describe that. And I would, in particular, when you're doing your interview, think about the language that that person is using and see if there's vocabulary that you can reflect in your searches. Okay. Does that make sense? Because I do think this, yeah, and it's because it's so broad and can mean so many different things. Yeah, that's one where you'll have to play around quite a bit. But yeah, I hope that helps. Okay.
Will you show that one more time? Like the topic guides are really useful.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, yay, topic guides, but probably nobody could tell me how you got there again.
Well, actually, like, should we have
Yeah.
a pop quiz? I'm
Yeah.
at the library homepage. How do I get to the topic guides? I wasn't intending this to be a hard question.
No, I don't remember.
Did I hear somebody say search by topic? Yay! That is the right answer. I should have brought candy. I'm sorry, I actually brought brownies in this morning, but I gave them to my coworkers, and I didn't bring them for you guys. I will do better next time. Yeah, so this is the full list of topic guides. Now, some of them, if you click on, did I click on criminal justice earlier? Does this one have? Some topic guides will have like more specific like per class guides or specific like subtopic guides. This one of course doesn't, and that's the one I clicked on, of course. But yeah, so you can explore those. Those are kind of one of the best ways to get to the subject specific resources within any particular discipline. This is kind of one of my best tips for like, as you are taking a variety of classes here at PFW, we tend to have a topic guide for most of the disciplines that are taught here. And so whether you are taking an English class, an engineering class, criminal justice, a communication class, biology, this is one way that you can access kind of those specific resources within that particular discipline.
I think you hit that when you're like, yay, great idea, and then later on you go to do it and you're like, I don't remember.
Well,
where it was.
the thing though,
Yeah.
if you don't remember, you can always ask.
Yeah.
And so there is
Worry about it, these things are-
there is the Ask Us button right here on the side of the page. I showed you earlier under Get Help. There are all the contact options there as well. I personally am always happy to help students. There's also under About, there is the contact page that gives you the full, if you really want to try to find a specific person at the library. I am Sarah Wagner, and due to the way that the alphabet works, I am dead last in the staff listing. So if you are trying to hunt me down to get my help, that is one way you can contact me. So please don't hesitate to reach out. I am happy to help, and my colleagues are always happy to help students as well.
Except they sleep.
What?
Except you guys do sleep.
We do sleep, yes. So you can email me at any time, but I might not respond until the next morning.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for coming, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. We'll close all of the
Oh, the
tabs that I had open, so I'm not crazy. There you go.
But as soon as you close them, you need them, right? So
I
leave them open.
will, yeah, of course. All right, and I will hand things back over to you.
Thank you so much. And she'll be at the library should you need her.
Yes, I am often found there, so please stop by.